I was fortunate to have some good friends who had like just some amazing families that like treated me well.
Yeah.
They treated me nice,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
wasn't
Which makes all the difference, right?
it makes all the difference. But
Like,
again, like to me, it was such a,
I think you told me that like you had dinner at someone's house once, and you were like, "So this is what
so
it's
this is
like."
what you,
Yes.
yeah. So because of, I think, some of the influence I had from some friends of mine's parents who like treated me good and allowed me to maybe sleep over from time to time and have dinner at the table. Like I think that did play a little bit of a positive influence that kind of probably made it so I didn't go completely off the fucking deep end.
Yeah.
But I want to. This brings me to actually the first life altering event that happened my junior year in high school. I basically was getting kicked out of my house for about the 100th time, but the difference with this one was the fact that my grandmother actually took me to court. She took me to court to like legally like divorce me. I'm not sure if that's the
unadopt you or
that's
whatever,
the
yeah.
well she whatever the process is, and so now I'm 17. That is big, and I a couple months prior I'd gotten in some trouble and I actually had to go live in a group home for a couple weeks, which, dude, at 17, that's like the worst. I mean, because you're there with a bunch of other shithead 16, 18-year-old kids. And it was, it was tough. So I knew that this was happening. I knew I had to go to court. I knew the possibility that, I could essentially be sent to live somewhere with some random people or stuck in a group home. And basically, I was talking to a buddy of mine, told him about the situation, and I told him, I was like, look, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I think I'm just going to have to run away because I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to be sent to live with some fucking strangers who God knows their intention. I had bad associations and such, and I was like, and I can't. I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking go back through that. I'm like, I'm probably gonna just run away and just figure it out, and whatever my plan was at the time, I don't really remember. And he's like, well, why don't you why don't you come stay with me and my family? And I was like, well, his name was Bill Mesmer. I love this kid to death to this day, but he basically said, why don't you come live with me in my family? And I said, well, Bill, that's very nice of you to say, but the problem is, well, I've never met your mother, and I literally met your dad one time. I met his dad one time in the gym, in the locker room. Hello, Mr. Mesmer, how you doing, sir? I'm Chris, Billy's friend. That was it. And he's like, look, just keep me posted on what happens, and we'll work something out. Yeah. The day comes, I go to court, and exactly what I didn't want to happen happened. They basically made a judgment to put me back in the care of the state. And from that point, I went with a social services worker to some office that was super far from where I was living. And I'm sitting in the office for hours and hours and hours. And, imagine that. They were having a hard time figuring out, they were having a hard time finding adoptive family that would be willing to take in a 17-year-old with behavior problems. Imagine that, right? Exactly. So basically, like, this is going on for hours, and I kind of like overheard them talking about this. Like, I'm not really sure what we're going to do. We might have to send them to and there was some group home that I knew the name. When they said it, I knew. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going there. So I basically went and like knocked on the door. I was like, hello. So I kind of overheard what you were saying, and I have a unique situation here. I have a friend who said that I can go live with him and his family. I was like, is that an option? And honestly, because they had no options, like, this is a complete shot in the dark. I mean, literally.
I see their faces. Okay.
They were like, well, if you can get them on the phone, we'd be willing to talk to them. So, well, okay, yeah, no problem. I was like, I'll give them a call right now. And again, like, dude, we'd never, beyond the conversation we had, there was nothing. So I called my friend, my friend Billy. He's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, hey, man, here's the situation. I told him, I was like, so remember what you said? I was like, brother, I was like, is there any way? I was like, I hate to even ask you this. I would tell you that I've never been so desperate before. And I've been down before, man. I've been desperate. As I said, stealing clothes out of the lot. I mean, I used to steal food, man, just so
fucking on the edge of the cliff,
brother,
teetering.
And I was like, is there any way that would actually be able to happen? Because I'm in a very bad situation here. He's like, look, call me back in 10 minutes. I'm going to talk to my parents. That 10 minutes felt like that like 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like staring at the clock, and like the second hand is just slowly like, and I called him back, and I was like, hey, he's like, hey. I was like, so did you have a chance to talk to your parents? He said, have them call my mom. My parents said it's completely fine, that they want you to come stay with us.
Huge break.
He didn't say yes, they said it was fine. He said that they said
Call.
they want me to come live with them.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, the feeling that I got in that moment was one that I'd never felt before.
Yeah,
So
that's true, huh?
it was amazing. And
That someone wants me, yeah.
the really compelling part about this story was the fact that the social service worker, social service people, they did what they
crazy.
did, spoke to the parents. The first time I laid eyes or spoke to his mom was when I arrived on her doorstep with the social services worker.
That's some good people.
Brother, she opened the door, and literally like an ear-to-ear smile,
Yeah.
just this welcoming just vibe.
Yeah.
And she said,
That's crazy.
welcome home, Chris.
That's awesome.
And that, without question, was a life-altering event for me. And like, just to this point, like, just saying it like gets me a little
Yeah.
emotional.
Gets
The
me
reason,
emotional because
yeah,
like seriously, it's hard to find people like that.
they're non-existent, man.
That's awesome.
But the thing that was compelling about this wasn't so much the act of generosity, the act of kindness, the act of love, shall we call it, that these people showed me. It was the fact that by allowing me into their home, it got me away from the environment situation that I was in that was contributing to me feeling not good all the time, and just basically being
Which is always what we talk about.
totally.
Right?
So
How do you become successful?
So, speeding things up, a few months go by, I'm living with them. Things start to change for me. Like the principal of the school, Dave Swanton, we were like arch nemesis. I mean, I was a pain in his ass. I'll never forget, he came up to me and he pulled me aside and he said, how are things going with the Mesmers? I said, honestly, amazing. I was like, they're just incredible people. They've changed my life in so many ways. Like, I come home, and I remember saying this to him because I remember after I thought that it was so silly that I said it.
Yeah.
I said, I come home and she makes me a sandwich. And then we have dinner at the table. We watch Jeopardy together as a family. His dad was like super smart and knew like all the answers to the questions on Jeopardy. So he's like, I can tell. He's like, I've noticed a difference in your grades. I've noticed a difference in he said A factor, and he just meant like my vibes.
Yeah.
My energy was different. And guys, the takeaway with this is this particular one is at this point, this was the first time that I had the ability to just kind of get a little taste of just the importance of the understanding the influence and the impact that your environment, the people around you, how that affects the way you feel.
And at least you were open to it as well, 'Cause a
Totally.
lot of people aren't open.
Right. Yeah.
They think a certain way and they don't change, and you were open to it. And that was probably the most critical part of it all.
Yep. So basically, that was the first time I started to kind of understand that, wow, like, okay, being around, I feel different. I feel better. I feel good. Again, at that point, I hadn't really felt that much.